Video, we're gonna see how to use GitHub to submit. Oops, I got all kinds of stuff going on here. Submit things to me for grading, or you can also use GitHub to submit things so that I can review and offer suggestions. The first thing we need is to download GitHub for Windows. So the way GitHub works, it's a repository that stores, well, it can store any files, and it keeps track of the revisions that you do. But we're going to end up using it in two ways. There's going to be revisions stored up on the GitHub server, and then there's also going to be revisions on your computer, and then we're going to have to sync the two. So the GitHub Windows that we're downloading right now maintains the repositories, they're called, on your computer. So I'm installing GitHub, and the way I found it is I just did a Google search for GitHub Windows, click on the first link, and do a quick install here. And then we're going to configure GitHub for Windows, and then we'll take a look at using GitHub together with PyCharm. And I'm assuming that you already have a GitHub account for this. Okay, so that's installed. And now, well, this is a little bit unfortunate because I had uninstalled this before so that I could do the setup, but it seems to me that it has remembered some things that I was hoping that it wouldn't. Okay, so we're going to configure some options. So go over to here. Let's do this again. Over here is settings, and we'll look at options. And you want to configure Git. So this is going to be your Git username and the email address that you used for Git. I'm using PowerShell. You can use other things if you want. You're going to clone projects that I post on GitHub down to your computer. So for the default path here, the clone path, all of my projects are in users, my name, PyCharm projects. This is a default, actually, address for PyCharm, and then I stored everything in ThinkPython. So you can change that clone path to make your life a little easier. And then we'll update this. So now we have GitHub Windows configured. Now we're going to go into GitHub itself, and, well, even if you can't spell, Google will get you close. I need to log in as a student, so it's Alfred University CS student. Now the way this is set up, I have access to anything that my professor Darwin Cook has made. So for example, I have this exam 2 repository. So if I go over to exam 2, I notice that if I click on exam 2, here is the exam in plain text, so I can look at the exam. But what I want to do is I want to submit answers to the exam, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to do what's called a fork. So when you fork this project, that means there's a bunch of files up there that may represent a large project. In this case, it's just one exam. You get a copy of everything. In this case, we're going to get a copy of the exam, and then you can make changes to that. So we are going to fork this, and when we do, we want to fork it over to our account. So in my case, I'm acting as the AUCS student. Okay, so now I am looking at the forked branch of the exam, AUCS student exam 2. And what I want to do is get all this information down into my desktop. So I'm going to clone in desktop, and this will work now because I installed, or better work, I installed the Windows version of GitHub. So we're going to make a clone in Git desktop, and that should activate my Windows software. And now it's going to ask me where I want to put it, and again, by default, that's going to go into ThinkPython, which is fine. That's exactly where I want it to go. So now it's making a copy of exam 2 from your local copy on GitHub. Okay, so it's showing the exam 2 here, so this is the code for exam 2. And now that we have a copy of that, and hopefully in the right place, we can go in and make some changes if we know how to configure PyCharm. So PyCharm works with GitHub. GitHub is what is known as a version control system, and there are lots of different version control systems out there. There's CVS, SVN, GitHub, and others. We are going to, let's see, we're going to open exam 2. You might not have this as a recent project, but GitHub created a folder, exam 2, for us in the Python project. So this should have the exam 2, and every GitHub folder has a README in it. So this should have exam 2 in it, so we can take a look at exam 2 in PyCharm if we want. Okay, so there's the exam, and what I want to do now is answer a question to the exam, or maybe 2. Okay, so question 1, answer. And do I want to add the following file to Git? So this directory that we're in now, exam 2, remember that directory was created by Git, so that it knows that it's supposed to keep files in this directory in sync with the stuff up on the internet. So it's asking you basically, do you want to keep this in sync, possibly with GitHub? And the answer is yes, we do want to do that. So we got a question. Answer 1 is, sorry, you're going to have to figure that out for yourself. Now, we have some more work to do here. I now have a Python file that I'd like my professor to take a look at. And so I'm going to go over here to default settings. And under default settings, you have the version control. And down under GitHub, again, you should put in your GitHub ID and your password. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Well, if I can remember that, I'll retype in my password and just test it. I get that right. Okay, so that actually worked out. So we have that set up. And notice that this file is actually typed out in green because it's part of my GitHub account. And maybe we'll create another file. And answer question number 2. And yes, we want to add this to Git. I'm a little nervous it's down there. Can't type. Shift, okay. So now I have 2 questions and that I've answered. Well, not really answered, but 2 questions that I pretended to answer. And I want to put those back in, well, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to do a commit, which tells Git that I actually want to create a point in time where these commits can be viewed and people can look at what I've done. And that's going to happen locally. But the other thing I'm going to do is do a push, which is going to put all this information back up on GitHub. So it's available on the internet. Up here, we should have this button active. And it's asking me what I want to commit to. So I don't need any of this stuff. All this stuff here is things that come along with PyCharm. It kind of gives PyCharm some settings and stuff that we don't really need. What we need was question 1 and question 2 answer. So I'm just going to click those two. Need to put up a message, so and then we're going to do a commit. And when you arrow over the commit button, you do a commit and push. Do both of those. And push. And I'm going to go with no on that. I don't care about the other stuff. Okay, so this is saying that it's been pushed up. I should be able to go to GitHub. Sometimes this can take a minute. I should be able to go to GitHub and look at my exam 2, and there are my questions. Question 1, answer pi, and question 2, answer pi. And then the advantage to this is that I am, there are 2 people that can contribute to your, what do they call it? Organization. So you have an organization with your name on it, and there's 2 people, and I'm in it, and you're in it. So once you've made these commits, then I can come in and look at these things. I can put comments on them, and you can go back to Python, make changes to them. And then once you've made a change, you can force them back up there. Oh, I just pushed all of them up. Well, I wasn't paying enough attention. It's being too quick. So I'm going to get a lot of extra stuff. That's okay. The idea thing was just the folder, so that's only going to show up as a single folder. That's not such a big deal. And what did I change? Was it question 2? So let's go take a look at question 2 now. And so this has the changes in it. Okay, so that's some basics of using GitHub, and this is how you're going to submit your exam.